Imagine you're in love, genuinely, deeply in love with someone, and she asks you to come meet her family, a simple weekend trip, nothing to worry about. So you go. You pack a bag and hold her hand the whole drive. And you think this is fine. This is what love feels like. But here's what you didn't know. You were chosen long before she ever said your name. The smile wasn't random. The invitation wasn't spontaneous. Every laugh, every touch, every reassurance was a door being opened, and you walk through it willingly. Because the most dangerous places you'll ever enter don't feel dangerous. They feel like a handshake, like tea, like a family that finally makes you feel seen. And by the time something inside you whispers that something is wrong, you're already sitting at their table. His name is Chris Washington, a photographer, quiet and observant, the kind of man who notices what everyone else walks straight past. There's a calm around him, not from confidence, from practice, from years of learning how to hold yourself together when everything around you isn't. But underneath that calm, there's weight, and someone in this story already knows exactly how to use it. Years ago, Chris lost his mother in a hit and run. She died on the road alone while he was home, watching television, assuming she'd be fine. He never called. That guilt never left. It lives in him the way old wounds do, quietly, constantly, always there beneath the surface. Remember that wound, because in this story, a person's deepest pain doesn't stay private, it becomes a weapon. His girlfriend is Rose Armitage, funny, confident, fiercely protective. The kind of woman who makes the world feel a little less heavy, or at least that's what she needs him to believe. Rose invites Chris to her family's estate for the weekend, a simple offer, something couples do. But Chris is nervous, not because he doesn't trust her, but because there's a question that lives quietly in the back of every black man's mind before he walks into an unfamiliar white space. A question he shouldn't have to ask, but always has to. Do they know? Do they care? He asks her directly. Rose laughs it off. Her parents are open-minded. He'll love them. She says it like that settles everything. And somewhere deep in his gut, quiet, almost inaudible Chris already knows it doesn't. The Armitage estate announces itself before they even step out of the car. Sprawling grounds, perfectly trimmed edges, the kind of wealth that doesn't speak. It simply is, and expects you to adjust. Too beautiful, too still, too quiet. Before a single door opens, something inside Chris tightens. Dean Armitage, neurosurgeon, polished, greets Chris with a firm handshake and a wide, practiced smile. Warm, generous, deliberate, Missy stands beside him, the mother, a psychiatrist. Her smile is a different thing entirely. Where Dean's warmth fills the room, Missy's attention narrows it. She is already working. Dean leads Chris on a tour of the grounds. Everything in its place, everything, except the people who move through it. The groundskeeper is black. The housekeeper is black. In this otherwise entirely white world, they move like furniture, present but somehow absent, eyes holding no warmth, smiles holding no weight. Chris sees it. He's a photographer. He sees what other people decide not to look at. Then evening comes, tea on the porch. And without meaning to, Chris tells them about his mother. The accident, the road, the phone he never picked up, the words leave his mouth before he can stop them. Something passes across Missy's face. Not sympathy, clinical interest, the precise, cold interest of someone who just confirmed what they already suspected. She files it away like a note in a patient's chart. Dean mentions hypnosis for the smoking, he says, casual, unprompted. Georgina sets down a tray, and Chris watches her face, a mask pulled tight over something unreadable, something that looks impossibly like happiness and terror at the same time. Then Rose's brother Jeremy arrives. Dinner is uncomfortable in a way that has nowhere to go. Jeremy studies Chris like a specimen, comments on physique, genetics, capability, and even stand up from his seat to challenge Chris to a fight. Dean steps in. Rose calls it embarrassing later. Chris lets himself believe her. That night, Chris can't sleep. The house breathes around him in a way that feels wrong, too quiet, like a room where someone just stopped talking the moment you walked in. He goes outside for a cigarette, something that still belongs entirely to him. And then Walter comes out of the dark, the groundskeeper, at a full sprint, aimed directly at Chris. eyes fixed forward, face completely absent of expression. He runs straight at him and then past him and disappears back into the black without a word. Chris turns. Georgina stands at an upstairs window, studying her own reflection. He goes back inside. The light in Missy's therapy room is still on. She's at the table, stirring her tea. The spoon against the ceramic cuts through the quiet of the house, small, specific, rhythmic. She invites him in, asks about the smoking, then gently asks about his mother. Chris hesitates, but the stirring continues. He answers before he decides to. His voice sounds far away. His mother's face surfaces the road, the phone, the guilt. His eyes fill. He cannot move. "Sink," she says. And Chris falls, not physically. He falls inward into a vast dark silence deep inside himself. He can see the world above him, small, flickering, impossibly far. He can feel his own body, but it doesn't respond. He screams. Nothing comes out. This is the sunken place. A prison with no walls. A hell that looks exactly like your own mind. He wakes the next morning in Rose's bed. Daylight. Almost convinces himself it was a dream. He approaches Walter on the ground's casual greeting. Walter turns, and the accent, the cadence, the distance behind his eyes is wrong. He speaks like a man from another era, inhabiting a body that doesn't match the voice inside it. Then Walter asks casually whether the hypnosis helped with the smoking. The air goes out of Chris's chest. It wasn't a nightmare. Guests arrive for the Armitage family's annual gathering, dozens of wealthy white faces moving toward Chris with the energy of people who are evaluating something, even when they're smiling. The attention is relentless. Comments about his body, about black skin being fashionable. Chris grips his camera and keeps moving. He has had years of practice at that. And then he sees Logan King. Young body, expensive suit eyes that don't match either. The same distance Chris saw in Walter, dressed up and brought to a garden party. Then Jim Hudson finds him a blind art curator who moves with the confidence of a man used to getting exactly what he wants. He doesn't comment on Chris's appearance. He talks about his photography with precision, with intimacy, with the kind of detailed knowledge that only comes from having studied someone's work for a very long time. More intimately than a stranger has any reason to know it. The unease in Chris's chest has weight now, real, specific, undeniable. And here's the question that should be living in your mind right now. Why does a blind man know the photography of an unknown photographer this well? Upstairs, his charger has been unplugged. Georgina stands nearby struggling with language she shouldn't find foreign, flinching at things that should feel natural. When Chris mentions feeling isolated, something beneath her breaks open. Her eyes fill, her voice cracks. She insists urgently, almost desperately, that the Armitages are family. Then she straightens and walks away like a wound trying to close before anyone sees inside. Chris calls his best friend, Rod, who works as an airport security officer. Rod listens, says, half joking, half not, that the white people are turning black people into sex slaves. Chris forces a laugh, but he doesn't disagree. Logan King moves through the party like a man wearing someone else's skin, which is exactly what he is. Chris raises his camera, the flash fires, and something breaks open behind Logan's eyes. For one impossible moment, the real man surfaces. He grabs Chris's arm and pulls him close. "Get out," he says. Then the moment closes. The mask returns. Logan is gone again. The entire weekend begins to reassemble. Jim Hudson wanted Chris's eyes. The man who knew his photography with such careful, intimate knowledge wanted to step inside it. Chris tells Rose he wants to leave. She agrees immediately, understanding. Perfect. She goes to find the keys. Chris waits in her room. The closet door is open. He looks. Photographs of Rose. Across years. With different men. Different faces. Different smiles. All of them black. All of them looking at her the way Chris looked at her when this weekend began. With trust, with warmth, with the specific relief of a person who believes they are finally, genuinely safe. Walter's face, Georgina's face, his own face, his own smile. The entire weekend reassembles itself into something that cannot be taken apart. Rose returns, keys in hand, smile in place. They move toward the stairs, but the house is already waiting. Jeremy at the door, Missy in the foyer, Dean in the center of it all, speaking calmly about brilliant minds and the need for better vessels. Chris yells for the keys. His voice tears through the performance like a blade through fabric. Rose looks at him. The smile stays, but the pretending stops. She knew. She has always known. She is not a victim of her family. She did not stumble into this. She is the hunter, the one who finds them, earns their trust, learns their wounds, delivers them every time. Her parents are open-minded. He'll love them. Here is what the Armitages never accounted for. They studied his grief, his guilt, his wound. They mapped every way to break him. But they never asked what made him survive this long in the first place. Chris lunges. Missy's spoon strikes the cup, and Chris falls. He wakes bound to a chair. Cold room. Clinical. Built for exactly this. On the screen in front of him, a recorded message plays old, polished, calm. Rose's grandfather, explaining what the family has spent generations building. The Armitage family transplants the consciousness of wealthy white individuals into younger, healthier black bodies. The recipient gets everything: youth, strength, talent, a life that finally feels like theirs. The original occupant? Pushed down into the sunken place. Conscious, aware, alive, watching their own life from somewhere dark and unreachable, through eyes they can no longer control. Forever. That is what happened to Walter, to Georgina, to Logan King. They were full, whole people with names, with voices, with lives that belonged to them. And the Armitages took all of it, carefully, with a spoon and a soft voice and a warm cup of tea. Jim Hudson wants Chris's eyes. The surgery will leave Chris conscious in the sunken place, aware of everything, in control of nothing, forever watching his own hands make someone else's art. The audio shifts. The low hypnotic tones begin. But Chris's hands are already moving. The chair is old, the upholstery unraveling at the armrest, stuffed with cotton batting that no one thought to replace. Chris works his fingers into it and pulls slowly, carefully, while the recording plays louder around him. And as the hypnotic tones begin to pull him under, Chris drives the cotton into both ears. The sound dies. The pull disappears. His mind sharpens, not gradually, immediately, like breaking the surface of water. He is awake, and now they're going to find out what that means. Jeremy comes for him first. A lacrosse ball ends that. Chris moves through the house not like a man escaping, like a man reclaiming every room they tried to take from him. Dean next. The antlers. A knocked candle spreading fire. Jim Hudson screaming from inside the operating room. Chris reaches Missy and knocks the teacup from her hands before she can lift it. The same cup, the same ritual, the last time she ever gets to use it. She is faster than she looks. Something sharp drives into his palm. They fight through the kitchen, not graceful, not clean. Grief and rage and years of guilt channeled into one necessary act. The body finally doing what the mind was never allowed to. One by one, room by room, always moving. Because stopping means the sunken place, and he is never going back there. Chris finds the keys and starts the engine. The house shrinks behind him, and then Georgina steps into his headlights. The impact is immediate, and in the dark, on the road, his mother comes flooding back the night. The phone, the choice that has lived in his chest like a splinter for years. He cannot leave someone in the road. Not again. He pulls Georgina into the car. Rose appears, rifle raised, voice soft. The same voice that said, "Don't worry." The same voice that said, "I love you." She calls Georgina her grandmother. Says it without flinching. From the passenger seat, Georgina attacks. The car veers. The crash is violent, final. Georgina does not survive it. Chris crawls from the wreck and keeps moving. Walter comes out of the darkness, Rose's grandfather, steering a borrowed body, charging with everything it has left. Chris raises his camera. The flash fires. Walter stops. Something shifts behind his eyes. The grandfather recedes, and the real Walter, whoever he was before any of this, whatever life was hollowed out of him, surfaces for one impossible moment. He reaches for the rifle, takes it from Rose, shoots her in the gut, turns the gun on himself. Chris lies down in the wreckage of the Armitage estate. Rose breathes in the grass in front of him. He looks down at her, this woman who studied his wound like a map, who held his hand on the drive-in, who knew every single thing that was coming and smiled at him anyway. He picks up the rifle, he holds it, he does not pull the trigger. Headlights sweep through the trees. A car arrives, not a police cruiser, an airport security vehicle. Rod steps out. No words large enough for any of this. No explanation that the night deserves. Just his best friend, the one person who kept looking, who drove through the dark because something felt wrong and he wasn't willing to wait anymore, standing between Chris and the rest of it. They get in the car, they drive away. Rose lies in the road behind them, hunting no one. Chris Washington carries his scars back into the world, not unbroken, not unchanged, but his. Still his. If you've ever ignored a feeling that something wasn't right, you already understand this story. Subscribe if you want more breakdowns like this.